Hello, everyone. This is Daryl Guberman. I am the CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. We've been open for 13 years. My background is aerospace, medical implants, medical materials printing, and plastic distribution, where we dealt in every industry. This video today goes to British Airways. And the title of this is QA expert Daryl Guberman alerts British Airways and passengers about Boeing being an FAA regulator from 2009 to present. And you can't make this up. We have a interview that Mr. David Calhoun, the CEO, gave to CNBC concerning the Alaska Air door plug that popped off the aircraft. We have, with a shadow of a doubt, I know in the United Kingdom you have UKAS accreditation, which sits on the International Accreditation Forum. They are equivalent in accreditation to ANSI-ANAB, the American National Standards Institute, and the American National Accreditation Board. They are underwriters for the International Accreditation Forum, where UKAS is a member. And also, they are underwriters for ILAC, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. The reason why I say this, British Airways, is from 2002 all the way up to present. You have got to go to Boeing and find out about the aircraft. If you bought aircraft during that term, you better check it out, because they were given authorization by the FAA to become Oversight. They are an authority, I guess. We will show it to you. I know. You will see that the FAA gave Boeing FAA authority. It's a regulator. The Boeing is a regulator, just like the FAA. So how can the FAA go back and do 100% inspection when, in essence, David Calhoun in 2009 was on Boeing's board? When he became the CEO, he basically became the administrator of Boeing as the FAA regulator. You will see this. You can't make this up. You have the American National Standards Institute, which is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation, which has both federal agencies and corporations on board. In 2015, you have this gentleman there, Randy Dodry, who was at that time the vice president of ANAB, which is the American National Crediting Board. And also he was the chairman of the IAF, which is the International Accreditation Forum, incorporated in Delaware. He was also on the 990 tax report as he was the principal there, which meant that he handled the entire ball of wax. He had the entire power there. He handed over leadership to this communist Chinese national, Zhao Jinwu, who's been involved with your quality over there in England and our quality over here since 1994. Okay, he at the time was also the chief executive of the China National Chief Executive of the China National Accreditation Services and Beijing, China. He is mandated by his country of origin, Communist China, to take our data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. These acronyms can drive you up a wall. In 2017, we catch him here in Wuhan, China, at the Bio Level 4 lab that released the COVID virus. The reason why I say they released it is because in Texas, in about 2017-18, you had a Miss Pamela Sale, the vice president of accreditation for ANSI-ANAB and ASCLD lab, who said under deposition in court that from one laboratory to another there were variances and they lacked protocols, which means the virus was more than likely released. I want to also tell you, in 2016, I was invited to join either ANAB or IAF or both, but how, as a proud American, how could I do that when we had cybersecurity on our shores in Delaware? How could I do that? I did not join. ANAB sits on ANSI's board. You have the factor here that ANSI took over complete control over ANAB in 2018. What makes matters bad here is I'm going to show you. They were sitting on the IF, the International Accreditation Forum. Now, mind you that they are an underwriter, so you would think that ANAB would be up here and the IAF would be down here, because basically, I guess they're controlling it from inside. We have all documentation. If you require more information, my telephone number is 203-556-1493 or Daryl, Daryl, TQRS at yahoo.com. So they sat on the IAF. What makes matters worse here, British Airways, management and personnel, and also those who fly on British Airways, is you have Iran who sits, and Pakistan. I'm not saying this about the people of those countries, I'm saying it about the political figures. You have Pakistan who harbored Osama bin Laden. You have also Iran who Mr. Khomeini here, Ayatollah whatever, Khomeini, states death to the United States. I'm sure he says the same thing about England. And he is supporting and condoning Hamas. They're giving him arms and ammunition and money. So what is this saying about this American company, ANZ ANAP? What is it saying about the UKAS in England? That do you guys approve? And you must guys, UKAS must approve and condone the fact that they have Iran on board and they're supplying money and arms and ammunition to Hamas, terrorist organization. How do you like them apples? It is absolutely disgusting. Sitting on ANZ's board, ANAB's board, it's ANZ ANAB, I call it that because it is true. You have 7 different registrars that are sitting right over by the accreditation body, ANAB, as you can see, and they use the ANAB logo. Is there any oversight? None. Absolutely not. Intertek, as a matter of fact, and you'll hear Spirit Aerosystems is going to be in the news a lot as well with quality issues that they supply materials to the entire aerospace industry, and you have 7 registrars there. Now we get on to Boeing. Your aircraft, some of them that you're flying around are Boeing. And I looked and did some research in British Airways. You've had a little bit of some quality issues with your aircraft, and I'm going to show you why, very simply. You have Boeing that sits on ANZ's board, Boeing. On their supplier portal, you remember Iran and Pakistan are considered equivalent to ANZ ANAB. And remember, ANZ ANAB are underwriters. On their supplier portal, it calls for ANZ ANAB or internationally equivalent. And when you pull back the skin of this rotten apple, you find out that that could be Iran and Pakistan. It truly is. By them being equivalent, internationally equivalent, who else would be there? Now we get into the brass tacks. This is an actual bulletin for suppliers in 2002. What this did is this gave their suppliers, because they were AS9100 certified, basically ANZ ANAB had authority of quality, meaning this in simple terms. In this supplier portal or supplier notification in 2002, for 22 years, Boeing relinquished their on-site audits at these suppliers to having an AS9100 certification. And by the way, Boeing sits on ANZ's board next to ANAB. They also sit on the ANAB board that at the time that will grant, suspend, and withdraw certification. They also sat on the board of directors of ANAB that steers the company in managerial decisions. So the deck was stacked. Do you see that, business owners? They basically gave inspection to their machine shops, their suppliers. Send us your AS9100 certification. You know that's for aerospace certification, the international standard, or the International Organization of Standards certification for aerospace. Send us your cert. We check off the box. We don't have to send any inspection, and send in your parts, and we put them on the plane. Now, Boeing is going to try to blame these recent issues on their suppliers. Well, let me just say this. By them releasing authority of quality control, inspection, and on-site inspection and auditing of their suppliers, the onus is on Boeing, David Calhoun. Now we get into the brass tacks. 2009, we bring it up even further. This was a publication, and this is what happened. The FAA walked in to Boeing and gave authority, regulatory authority, to Boeing and Boeing employees. So David Calhoun back here is not just the CEO, but he's an FAA administrator. And here we go. The FAA increased the authority of Boeing's commercial airline division to self-certify its aircraft. And here goes the kicker. British Airways, here goes the kicker. Boeing employs to perform tasks on behalf of the FAA that include oversight and testing of products and standards, along with certification of aircraft technologies and new aircraft designs. If you're still having trouble trying to get your mind around this, here you go. Take a look at these articles. You have Boeing fudging documentation. You have their supplier, Kobe Steel, fudging documentation. They really never alluded to what they were fudging, whether it was modulus elasticities, strengths, tensile strengths, etc., on the metals that were being put into that aircraft. But nevertheless, they were caught fudging documentation. Also, most recently, a Bell Boeing V-22 tilt rotor crashed about a month ago and killing everybody on board. You have the factor in their composite facility. I'm a composites person. My background's composites, as I told you. And in their composite facility, they caught them, again, fudging documentation, not for 1 year, but for 11 years, from 2007 to 2018. 11 years they were doing this on the V-22. And the thing with composites, ladies and gentlemen, for you don't know about composites is, let's say, fiberglass. It's impregnated with a sticky, tacky resin. And what you do is you put layer upon layer upon layer. And between time and temperature and pressure, the resin melts and the fabric comes to an integral part. It's a solid part after. The only problem is if there is interstitial bubbles. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, my fingers are the fabric. In between the fabric, or in between these these filaments, you may have bubbles because it wasn't properly pressure and temperature. And these bubbles, what they'll do even between the fabric, if these interstitial bubbles are a lot of quantity, and you have vibratory stresses with the aircraft vibrating, you'll have separation and disbond. The other problem we have is the FAA sits by Boeing, who is, and as I showed you, Boeing is a regulator along with the FAA. Most recently, British Airways, we hear and we read in the news that the National Department of, the Department of Transportation, through the National Safety and Transportation Board. The Department of Transportation handles that. They're supposed to, along with the FAA, go in and look at Boeing. I have a question. You guys and gals are smart over there in England. How can a regulator look over a regulator? Because they gave Boeing regulation authority. And you have Mr. David Calhoun, and here's the U.S. Department of Transportation. Down below the video, I'm not going to play it now, but down below this, in the description, you'll find the first video is David Calhoun's interview with CNBC saying that our regulator, the FAA, will inspect 100%. Well, if Boeing was designated FAA authority and regulation, they are a regulator, as you can see from that AV Web description, that they were that Boeing waved their magic wand and made them self-certified, means that they work on the part, they inspect the part, and they ship the part out. And that's why there's quality issues. My telephone number again, 203-556-1493, or Daryl, Daryl, TQRS at yahoo.com. And the last one I'm going to tell you is from Thomas Paine, because it basically fits the mold of Boeing's management team. It is impossible to comprehend the moral mischief, if I may so express it, that mental lying has produced in our society. When a man has so far corrupted and prostituted the chastity of their mind as to subscribe their professional beliefs to things they do not believe, they have prepared themselves a commission for every other crime. And I thank you, British Airways. And if you need anything, just contact me.